So the form, what's going to happen? I am, as I said, going to be running through all of the questions and thumbnails that have been submitted on the question channel and just giving my thoughts and answers to each one of those questions. I'm going to try and keep them all nice and broad, nice and relevant to everyone. So even though it's someone else's thumbnail, someone else's question, there's still going to be a ton of value in there for everyone. And yeah, as I said, keep active on the chat channel. I will try and keep up with both. Right. From the top. So yeah, I'm just jumping over to the questions channel now. And starting from the top, Fly All Time, who I don't believe is on the stage, but he had two questions. So his thumbnail is this sort of airplane thumbnail, 30 billion lost in text. And his question is, does a thumbnail with a dark background mean it's going to get less clicks than a thumbnail with a bright background? A lot of people have suggested to me that having bright backgrounds will work. So on that first one, there really is no one answer to that. Like, there's no reason a darker background or a lighter background is going to work better. It all comes down to what that background is doing to the other elements in the thumbnail. And the main thing on that is contrast. So whether your background is creating enough contrast, which is basically the difference between two objects, the difference between the background and the main object, the main elements, and whether there's enough contrast there that the main elements are clear enough so that people can actually see what's going on, understands what's going on. So there's no general answer for everyone, but in this particular case, which is Fly All Time's thumbnail, so if you're looking at this in the question channel, he's gone for a darker background, which I think makes a ton of sense, because the main elements here we're looking at are the text and the aeroplane itself, which both are white. So obviously, to get those to stand out the most, you're going to want the most contrasting background, which is in this case going to be a darker background. So no general rule, very specific to the thumbnail goal. Create the most contrast, so the main elements of your thumbnail are as clear as they possibly can be. And the backgrounds, while some backgrounds can actually be very useful in the thumbnail, they can provide significant information, should we say, to the thumbnail and whatever it is you're trying to get across. I always tend to find that backgrounds are just very subconscious layers that are just there to help the main elements. So don't overthink the background too much, just very much focus on that contrast side of things. I think we've got TKG. Is TKG in here as well? Just saw him. Is he joining on? He's joining on. But there's, designers will be able to give you much more sort of scientific breakdown to what I've just said, but on its most basic level, that is what you want to be looking for. And the second question from Fly All Time is, can you please review this thumbnail for me? Okay, so yeah. So on this specific thumbnail, as I said, I've described it if you're not looking at it, but if you are, aeroplane, text, 30 billion lost. I think this is a pretty good thumbnail. The situation is set up because it's a very clear picture. There's nothing else going on. It is literally just the plane. And then the text supplements that by giving it this context of, now we're looking at it, that the fact this plane, for some reason, has lost $30 billion. So I'm assuming for the target audience, I'm guessing by your Discord username, that your channel is somewhat related to flying, airplanes, something along those lines. So your target audience is, I'm assuming, going to see this and have a ton of questions that are going to be asked. What's happened here? Why have they lost that? I didn't know Emirates have lost 30 billion, all that sort of stuff. I don't know the title. I do know the title, The Rise and Fall of the World's Biggest Plane. Yeah, I think that's a good title. Works really well. This situation of information being there that you want to know, basically you want to know the answer. Why did it happen? And I think overall this is a good thumbnail. General advice for everyone. I think I really like the simplicity of this one. There's not too much going on. As I said, just a very clear background, nicely contrasting with the main elements being the text and the airplane. So yeah, overall, I probably wouldn't change anything. I would potentially look at doing a version where the text is just minus $30 billion. Potentially that could say the same thing in less words. That tends to be my strategy with thumbnail text, is if there's a way of saying the same thing in less words, it's normally better to opt that way, just because why have pointless information, or not pointless information, but excessive information. So yeah, that's potentially the only alteration I would mention, but other than that, looks pretty good. Next question from... Oh, sorry, just jump back down to the bottom. Brian Ito? I think I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if I'm not. Video title, I just turned 21 and it's not what I expected. And then just a note on the thumbnail, used to be more pale in colors, but brightening up certain elements. So, Brian Ito, I don't know your channel. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm not sure of the size of your channel and subscriber base and audience base. Because my initial thoughts of when I read this title and look at this thumbnail is it's very centered around you, which is not always an issue. But if you're a smaller creator, and as I said, I don't know if you are or not, but if you are a smaller creator, you have to really look at it from the target audience's perspective, who, as a smaller creator, most of them aren't going to know you yet. So thinking from their perspective, someone who doesn't know you, are they going to be that interested in this title and thumbnail of I just turned 21 and it's not what I expected? There's obviously some intrigue there in the fact that it's not what I expected. And I don't think the idea itself is necessarily a no-go. I just think the current framing of the packaging could potentially be more focused on appealing to newer viewers. So whether that's going to be something like, I see there's a lot of threads on Twitter like this, and videos, I suppose. It's like 10 things I wish I knew when I was before I turned 21 or something like that. And I just think there's angles here which can create more intrigue for new viewers. So that would be my only thing there from a general framing perspective. And then also that probably the same advice resonates in the thumbnail. If you're a new viewer who doesn't know who you are you going to look at this thumbnail and be that intrigued by it? I think your expression is pretty good. There's this like bit of conflict there between these balloons, which clearly show it's your birthday, but this slightly like, bemused, unhappy expression. I'd potentially be thinking, is there any way I could exaggerate that? And when I say exaggerate, I don't mean go over the top and do the classic thumbnail face style, but is there any way you can just make that expression, emotion of unsatisfaction and whatever it is you're going for more clear? So any new viewer doesn't necessarily rely or have to work to understand what it is you're trying to get across. They instantly look at it and they go, oh wow, this guy's birthday, why is he not happy? This is for me. So that's more general packaging advice for that one, or general framing advice, shall I say. And for everyone else, I think it's important to really consider both returning viewers and new viewers in the sort of brainstorming of packaging. And if you have a massive audience, then this thumbnail and title and thumbnail is going to work. It's going to be more likely to work, because actually there is intrigue in you. And that's where the clickable elements are. So let's say, looking at an extreme, Casey Neistat uploads this thumbnail, obviously not 21, but however old Casey is, 40 for example. If he uploaded that thumbnail, it's going to work. It's going to work much better. So it all comes down to the size of the audience and who you're trying to hit. You're trying to hit new viewers, returning viewers. What does that balance look like? Is there any way you can create a title and thumbnail that hit both? Just jumping to the chat. Yeah, and again, yeah, true. Gilzilla, probably do something with a cake. I think the balloons, you could do combo, because I think the balloons do a great job because they give context to the fact that it is your birthday and also your age, which I'm assuming is quite an important aspect of the thumbnail to your target audience, looking to appeal to younger people around a similar age. But yeah, potentially some more elements. If you have a cake and you're like looking over the cake, but with this, as I said, sort of unhappy expression, the conflict becomes even better. So yeah, that's a good point. You could even get more elements in there to reflect your birthday and the sort of conflict that you're trying to get across. Being 21 is overrated. Yeah, that's a good recommendation in the chat as well. That title is a great one that is appealing to more of a wider audience. You don't have to know the person to find that title interesting. So yeah, very good recommendations. Next question. MZ1. I have two questions. Which thumbnail below would be better for a video on how KSI became what he is today? And let's take the KSI video as an example. If I upload it on a channel and I instantly post it on KSI's Reddit, where thousands of people from there will view the video, does that ruin the chance of my video getting recommended? Okay, so looking at the two thumbnails, the main question I always ask here, and I bring this up a lot in the Discord, I think I've mentioned it a few times on Twitter, is when deciding on what angle you should take your thumbnail down, I always ask myself the question, what is remarkable about your idea? What is it in this idea that is good enough to make a potential viewer remark on whatever it is you're discussing? And I think that gives you a really good idea of what you should build your title and thumbnail around. So in this case, I don't have massive context of what the video is about, but it's something along the lines of basically the rise of KSI. So if you ask yourself what is remarkable about this idea, there's going to be a few different angles you could take it down. And I think your thumbnails do a pretty good job of showing two of these versions. One of them is the basically before and after, how KSI went from being a gamer to what he is now. And then also the second version, which is more focused on the brands. I personally think the before and after is a really interesting angle, because if you ever hear anyone talking about KSI or talking about KSI, the thing they always emphasize is how someone went from a guy playing games in his bedroom to basically being one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet. And I think that is the most remarkable element. So therefore, actually, I think I prefer that top thumbnail, because I think that is the one that captures that best. You've got this old shot of KSI, FIFA going on in the background. Then you've got this more recent shot of KSI with Prime, Sidemen, him rapping, I think, on the right-hand side. So yeah, I think that is probably the better thumbnail. And then the question on Reddit is not something I know too much about, particularly the Reddit world. But I do think you have to, when used well, it can be very powerful, but you do have to be careful with recommending content outside of the platform, just because it creates very inorganic metrics, should we say. So if you share it on Reddit, his Reddit, and it goes to the top, you're going to get a ton of clicks, but are people just clicking it because it's there? And then what are they going to do when they get there? Do they just want to click on it because they're like slightly curious? And are they going to be as likely to stay around if they clicked on it organically through YouTube? So I think you just have to be careful with that. Obviously, there's some examples of videos that have actually absolutely blown up because of their external push, particularly on Reddit. Reddit can be a great place. I think if my recommendation for anything in terms of external sharing would be very honest and clear with what your video is about, just so you're making sure that everyone does click on it, is actually interested in the video and more likely to watch it. And pick wisely where and how you share it. But yeah, it can be a very powerful metric. Next question. Jensen, video title, can we play the perfect round of golf? What do I do to improve the thumbnail? Do you think I'm over-reliant on text? Looking for quality, what do you think I should be ballpark charging for these thumbnails? So what can I do to improve the views in my thumbnails? So I'm just looking at all of these, and all of them are quite confusing. I think that potentially the top one is the least confusing one. But if you looked at all bottom three as a new viewer, particularly looking at this new viewer again, new viewer audience who doesn't know who you are, what your channel is about, are they going to know what it is going on? I would argue in the bottom three, it's not even super obvious that it's a golfing related video. Potentially the argument that the bottom one, you could argue lose hole equal drink. You could say that that's clearer, but to me there's actually not that much which is super obvious. So context is really important in the thumbnail for everyone on the call. You've got to make sure viewers know what your video is about from the thumbnail. Not to a detailed degree, but you need to show them that by just looking at a thumbnail, they've got some idea of what your video is about and that it is something that interests them. And I just don't think that potentially these ones do it that well. So that would be my focus. Just really understand what it is your video idea is about and work out clever ways that you can visually represent that to make sure it's clear, which is difficult, but that's the hard part of thumbnails, is working out what you need to show and actually how you show it. Do you think I'm over-reliant on text? I think keeping this general, I think my advice on text is that I always recommend trying to build a thumbnail out without text first. And that's not to say that text is bad and you shouldn't use text, but I think sometimes when you use text, creators can become too reliant on it. It almost becomes a bit of a get out of jail free card. And by having text, they just sort of neglect the rest of the thumbnail. When you build the thumbnail out first without text, it forces you to try and work out the best visual representation of the idea. And then once you've built out something which is hopefully effective, then look at the thumbnail and ask yourself, okay, is there text we can use here to make this even better? Are we missing context that isn't clear because of how we built the thumbnail? Is the thumbnail showing what the video is about, but just lacking that bit of a hook that's going to get people to read the title and potentially click? Well, can you use text to step in there? So that's sort of general advice. These specific thumbnails, I think in general, as I said, I think they're too busy. And one of the main elements that is doing that is the text itself. But I think in a world where you just try and simplify these thumbnails a bit and make the context clearer, you can continue to use text in a similar way. I think that 3 words or less is a good rule of thumb. And count it as an element. So if we look at, some of these thumbnails have like 4 or 5 significant elements of information, which is just too much. People just won't be able to understand and consume it. So yeah, looking of quality, what do you think I should be in the ballpark charging for these thumbnails? I don't know if that means you're the designer, which you might be. I don't know. If you're the designer, I suppose it's the same answer. If you're the channel or if you're a designer, thumbnail pricing can range. And it really does depend where you're at. If you're a designer just starting out, you probably want to lower your prices to just get clients, build up a portfolio. If you're an established designer, designers can be charging $100, $200, $300 per thumbnail. So there's a wide range, and it very much depends on if you're. I don't know if you're the channel or the designer. So I can't give the best advice, but yeah, somewhere in the range of $50, $100 is probably what a good range for thumbnails. And then, as I said, if you're looking at top tier, you're going to be charging slightly more than that. Just going to check the text. Oh, Jensen, you are in. Do you think sometimes a big enough creator in the niche is an exception to that first rule because that first thumbnail is actually the worst performing video of the four, surprisingly? Okay, and you're the designer. So yeah, yes, I agree. If they are an established channel, then the priority is going to slightly shift to capturing them more than the wider context because the intrigue becomes them. But I still think there is more of a priority on capturing the idea. As I said, I'm not 100% sure on what sort of niche they're in. Maybe their particular content is actually more focused on these other things that they're doing, drinking challenges, than the golf, which probably means you are capturing more of the right thing. But yeah, I would ask that question that I just described before, really working out what's remarkable about the idea, whether that is actually golf play or something else, and then just building a more simplified version of thumbnails around that. But yeah, if you're an established channel, you do have to be more cautious of dramatically changing the style and working out what is the most remarkable element. Where am I reading from? Yeah, questions. Thank you. I'm just sort of 5 down. I don't know how many we've got. Probably need to speed this up. Sorry. Not too many people have left yet, so I'm not rambling too much. But we'll keep going. Okay, next question is from Ollie. I climbed one of Norway's biggest mountains. And there's the thumbnail there. Question: even though I wore this outfit to hike the mountain, would a more climbing gear picture of me work? Yeah, great question. And I think general advice on that is that I think in the current environment of YouTube, you can definitely get away with exaggerating certain aspects of the idea without causing too many issues. But I think it's exaggerating is the key word there. Exaggerating, not misrepresenting. And I think that you potentially adjusting to climbing gear is, in my opinion, more of an exaggeration. I don't think anyone's going to call you out if you weren't wearing that exact gear. If it is a big enough mountain, like if you're wearing all this climbing gear, you've got this shot of you on top of this, what seems to be a very high mountain, and you just end up climbing like what's a hill, then there probably people are going to be slightly annoyed. But if it is actually, a reason, Norway, from my knowledge, it's a pretty mountainous area. So I'm assuming if you climb the biggest mountain in Norway, it's a pretty significant one. So yeah, I think there is a world where you could add climbing gear and to raise the stakes, exaggerate the point, exaggerate the idea without having too many issues. And question 2, I debated choosing the amazing landscape of Norway, but went for clouds to emphasize the height a bit more. Would you say maybe a mix between both would be better? I think this one all comes down to the target audience. And linking this back to everyone, I think that the key thing is working out what your audience wants. What are they going to find interesting? What are they going to click on? So, Ollie, if your audience is more of like a travel-based audience, or that you're a channel-based channel, a travel-based channel that is trying to appeal to that audience, then potentially capturing a more scenic background is going to be better because the travel audience might recognize that, especially if there's like if this is a very distinctive area or there's a distinctive view or a distinctive feature of the landscape. The travel audience is going to recognize that and be like, oh, wow, this guy, I know that's Norway. Or even if they don't, like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like, my guess is the travel audience is going to be more interested in that. But if you're trying to appeal to more of a challenge-based audience, then I think you're probably right by emphasizing the height. So it all comes down to really working out what your target audience is going to find most interesting, and then make a decision on that. That is just, the best way to think about it. This is being recorded. Sorry, just jump back to the chat. It is being recorded. We'll be sharing probably tomorrow. Might have to do a little bit of editing, but I'll be sharing it probably in this channel, but I'll announce it in announcements. So yeah. And Ollie, you're more travel based. Yeah, I agree. I think if you're travel based, go more realistic. Yes, Theory is a great reference. Okay, next question. Simplement. I think that's French. My French is not very good, so I'm gonna butcher that second part. So I won't even try because we'll stick with that. Title: League of Legends. Simply Todd. It is a funny animation about League of Legends. For Jacking, it's the World Championships right now. Character is pretty recognizable in the game. Okay, so yeah, this is not my... I have no familiarity with this niche at all. Or even, the wider trend of League of Legends. So I'm pretty limited, but from a fundamental standpoint, I like the simplicity. The character on the left, and then what I'm assuming is a very recognizable League of Legends emblem on the right. I don't think the text is that... I think the text could be better. One, because I think design-wise it's clashing. You've got the white background, and then you've also got the red part of the character, which the text is going over. So on the red, against the red it works, but then the white... With the stroke, it still works. It's pretty clear, but I think there could be potentially clearer executions of that text. And I just think the text itself, if I'm honest, and this may be because I'm not in the target audience, but the thumbnail just doesn't make sense. I don't know what the thumbnail is trying to represent. Are you saying that League of Legends is the worst video game? And how that character relates into all of this? Again, could be because I'm not in the target audience, but what I would emphasize is really thinking from their perspective and trying to understand, okay, what is it that's going to be interesting to them, and will they be able to understand this from the thumbnail? And if not, just try and think of more creative ways to represent that. And title-wise, League of Legends Simply Told. I like the title. It's pretty nice, short and concise. League of Legends being the big social hack. That's at the front end of the title, so you've got the important information early. Overall title is pretty short. So yeah, title I think is not too far. And yeah, thumbnail, just try and tighten up that context if it does need. Next question, Joel O, maybe. Video title: Mario movie trailer in Minecraft. Highest viewed video on my channel. It's one of the most basic thumbnails. The first one is the current one. So I don't know the actual views that it's getting, but if it's the best performing video on the channel, it's normally a good sign that the thumbnail's working. That being said, just because it's working for the channel doesn't necessarily mean it's the perfect thumbnail. There might be more views to be had there, but I like it. I like the top one. I personally don't think the trailer adds much. I think that the thumbnail creates enough intrigue, so potential viewers are going to want to know more, and then your title gives a lot of context, particularly mentioning the movie trailer. So I just think this is a really good idea, and you've captured the essence of that in the thumbnail really well. You know, what makes this idea? What are the key elements of this idea? Well, it's Mario and Minecraft. And I think the fact that this Mario, particularly in this trailer, was very distinctive and also talked about quite a lot. I think a lot of people are going to recognize that. So you don't need to add trailer, in my opinion, because I think people will see this and they will instantly know what it is you're talking about. And as I said, if they don't, the title does a really good job of explaining that. So to me, I think if it's working, I would potentially stay away from touching it. And I actually do think that top version is a better thumbnail anyway. Next question, Illegal Pie question: how many focus points should a thumbnail have? So there's the 3-element rule, which I think is a pretty good one. I like the 3-element rule, and I think in its execution, some people take it a bit too far. The way I look at it is that instead of saying 3 elements, I basically like to describe it as 3 main parts of information, if that makes sense. So if we looked at the thumbnail that was attached to this question, the question was from Illegal Pie, if you're looking for it on the questions channel. Some could argue that there is more than 3 elements in this thumbnail. There's the character, there's the text, there's the T arrow, and then there's the actual 10,000 anvils. But, in terms of significant information, you could argue that the character is one, the text is the other, and then the arrow and the actual build are combining. So I think that the 3-element rule is a good one, but don't get too hung up on it. Use it as a guideline, and instead of being too stuck on it being 3 separate elements, look for important parts of information. Basically, what is the viewer going to actually be looking at in terms of significant parts within the thumbnail, and try and keep that under 3. And I think this is a really good thumbnail. I am not that familiar with the Minecraft niche. I don't watch too much Minecraft content, but it looks pretty big. It looks pretty remarkable. I like the framing, the way you've got the character sort of looking over it. Really makes the build, it gives sort of context to the build, makes it look really nice, really big. So yeah, you've worked out what's remarkable about this idea, which is the build itself and the scale of the build, and you've worked out a really good way to visually represent it. I could argue you might even not need you could even make the arrow slightly smaller. As I said, I don't think it's a significantly important element. I think it's good for flow. People read the text and they are naturally drawn down to the build with the arrow, but I don't know if it needs to be that big. So I would potentially just make the arrow a little bit smaller. Let the build do the work. Just jumping over to the chat. Dale, have roasts been done in a video live stream format before? No, this is we've done a chat. We've done a call before, but it was more getting people on stage. Haven't done it in this format before. So yeah, any feedback as well, keep it coming. Okay, next question. Next question is from Parker Wolf. Title, Minecraft Bed Wars, but in Fortnite. Question, is there too much going on in the thumbnail for someone to understand? So Minecraft Bed Wars, but in midnight. Again, I'm slightly limited because of just my unfamiliarity with the niche and the idea itself. But I do have potentially some concerns that this idea isn't the thumbnail, doesn't represent the idea super well. I get what you're going for with this like split screen and this what I'm guessing is like this transformation from Minecraft to Fortnite. But I don't know if it's super obvious. And I personally think maybe a single image of the two worlds combined could actually work better. So could you basically just make that right-hand side the whole image and just make sure it's very clear that it is both Fortnite and Minecraft. Fortnite, the character itself, maybe some other elements that could make it Fortnite, the HUD or whatever, and then the bed and the landscape Minecraft. I personally think that would be better. There's many ways you can combine the two. Could you have a Fortnite character holding a Minecraft sword? I think that's going to be the best way to go. I think that's just going to be clearer in a single image rather than the split screen one. But you've definitely gone for the right angle. It's just the actual final execution of it. But close. And it sounds like an interesting idea. It's a very good way to think of unique ideas. It's like combining worlds, combining ideas. Can be a great way to think of new ideas that haven't been done before. Next question. Abhinav. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Title, world's largest Starbucks drink. Question, does putting a raw picture without any edit enough to grab viewers' eyes as well as generate curiosity to get the click? So I think that there's two answers to that. Capturing a single image itself can be great for building trust, in my opinion. I think we were discussing this earlier in the Discord. In general, I think some people were sharing some viral, sort of the classic viral videos. And there's this like very, very recognizable style of viral content. It almost has this homemade feel to it. And I think it just has this overall feeling of trust and authenticity. When you see this, you're sort of like, okay, well, they actually did it. There's no edit here. There's no manipulation. I can see them very clearly doing this. And if they have photoshopped, it's like they aren't going to think it is because it looks so real. So having a raw image like that can be very good, but you do, in doing so, lose certain aspects that you do need, that are very important in the thumbnail. One of the ones you said was actually grabbing the viewer's attention. I think that probably is your biggest issue with this one. The Starbucks cup just doesn't pop, overused word, but it's a great one. It doesn't pop that much in the thumbnail because of the color of the drink, and the sky are quite similar. The environment is quite similar. So there's no clear focus in this thumbnail. And what you might find is that through a bit of color grading, you could emphasize this. You could try and bring out the colors of the cup more, potentially subtly take out some of the colors of the background, change the background, but try and keep that authentic feel to it. So I think for this one, your best bet is somewhere in the middle. I really like the idea of raw images because of the things that I explained, the trust and the authenticity that it builds. But you do need to make sure that it is still clear, it still pops, and it's going to grab someone's eye, especially on a busy homepage. So I think, hybrid of the two is going to be the best one for you. Next question, Cheese Cat. I found the worst reviews on Shein. I think that's Shein. Question, are there too many colors in this thumbnail? Question 2, does the text make sense? Question 3, what would make this thumbnail better? So question 1, are there too many colors in this thumbnail? No, definitely not. I think this is a really good balance of color. I think that the white background and the screen grab that you've put on top doesn't have too much visual noise, should we say. It's just a very simplistic background. And that means that your focus is really drawn to what is important, which is you and the image itself through the screen grab. So no, I don't think there's too many colors in here. I think this is really good use of color, drawing the eye to what is where it's supposed to go. And 2, does the text make sense? Does the text make sense? So I'm assuming that you're referring to the doggo won't give back and the 1 star. With this sort of thing, you have to you have to sort of think about whether the text is actually going to be read. And in this case, I don't think you should necessarily remove that text above the image, the verified purchase, doggo won't give it back, because I think it helps give sort of context and is this almost like subconscious feeling to what you're trying to get across by keeping that in there. But I don't think that viewers are going to read it, and I don't think it's important that they read it. I think if we're looking at this thumbnail and asking what it is that potential viewers are going to click on, it's going to be the image itself and whatever it is that image is showing, and then the sort of context that you've built around it with the 1 star rating and your reaction. So it really comes down to, which sort of goes on to your next question, is how would I make this thumbnail better? Is that image is really important. And I can't particularly answer because I'm not in your target audience again, but it's all about asking yourself, is this thumbnail does it clearly show something which is going to interest the potential viewer? Part of me thinks that image is pretty clear, but there is part of me that thinks like, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. Like I'm assuming that's like a toy. But it doesn't necessarily show anything about the toy. It's just a dog with a toy in its mouth. So could you, if it was a 1 star rating, I haven't watched the video and I don't know the niche that well, but I'm assuming if it's about like bad toys, could you get a picture of a dog with a toy, looking at a toy that they've just completely ripped apart, or basically capturing something that's gone wrong, so your target audience is going to see that and really understand exactly what it is you're trying to get across. I think you were in the stage. Did I see? No. Yeah, no, you are. So yeah. If you have got any, and this goes for anyone, if I have discussed your thumbnail, feel free to pose any follow-up questions or stuff in the chat. But yeah, that's what I would say with that one. Okay, next one. D Maze. also a fellow Vid Summiter. Good to meet you at Vid Summit. I think you're here. I'm just talking to myself. No, you're here. And this thumbnail. I know I don't know if this one's out yet, but I know you've been working on this one for a while. Making 100 movies in 24 hours. So I think it's a really cool idea. And I like the title as well. It's super concise, gets across everything it needs to well. So on the thumbnails, questions. The first image of me with the tux was the first design. The second image with the green screen is the current one. Do you feel the current thumbnail conveys the title and premise better than the first? And do you think it will play well for my 20 to 30-year-old male audience? It's a pleasure seeing you at Vid Summit. It's a pleasure seeing you too. Yeah, I mean, going back to that question that I've touched on a lot already is what is remarkable about this idea? And, what is remarkable is the struggle. I'm assuming you have to answer this question from the content and considering the target audience. But my guess is that it was the struggle of the challenge that you went through for recording for what I'm guessing is 24 hours straight in a pretty intense fashion. So that is what's remarkable, and I think that the second version does a better job of that. The focus is clearer. There's the expression and the emotion is different. You're showing you exhausted. I think that the camera is clearer, which is a big part of it. I think in the first one, it gets slightly lost in the thumbnail. So that second one, I think from that perspective is better. All I would say is particularly given your audience, which is slightly older, 20 to 30, does the background of what you are showing in that second one clearly capture a movie? Like, it's quite exaggerated, and which I think you can get away with because you're trying to clearly show it. But I'm just thinking, is there anything you could show there instead of having the two people sort of mid-fight? Is there anything else you could show there which just more clearly captures movie? My initial thoughts goes to someone wearing like a ridiculous costume outfit that is clearly from a set. You can still have the green screen. I think green screen is great because it gives context of the studio, and that's why I think actually having someone in like a ridiculous outfit there, more clearly there, will very clearly show that you're recording a movie. Because if some guy's like, I'm trying to think of, dressed up as a ridiculous superhero and they're against this green screen, it's much more clear what's going on. Whereas this one, like, you could say, are they recording like parkour? Are they recording dance? Like, it's not super obvious. So that's the only thing I would change. Overall, yeah, I think the second one is much better. I think it captures what's remarkable about the idea. In a really nice way. So yeah, I know you're here. So any follow-up questions, feel free. Sorry, one sec. Okay, Ranvir. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I need to get better at that. Apologies. What can I do to make this thumbnail more popping without changing the color theme? In my opinion, it needs to be dark to emphasize horror. Also, general question, what is the process of coming up with video ideas to make a good thumbnail? So I think in this thumbnail, I agree. I think from what I'm getting, I don't know the title, but from what I'm getting from the thumbnail, there is a big part of this which is reliant on the horror, as you said, which you're going to capture through this scary, lights off, dark environment. So I think that's important. And I think for, actually, you should own that. It can be a bit of a risk. And I know that it's often thumbnails that do this style can struggle because it just makes it harder to get across what it is you're trying to capture. And I know this is a big thing that a lot of people in gaming niches, in like house scare videos or house tour videos, where people go to like abandoned or haunted houses. This is often something that comes up because you do want to capture that feel, but it can, in doing so, just be slightly unclear, particularly as a thumbnail. But I think you can get away with this one here. And what I would be thinking, as I said, is owning it. So I would be tempted to remove, I think that big red arrow is too much. I think you could remove that big red arrow. You could scale the image slightly, make it slightly bigger, so you're still capturing the feel of what you're trying to get across, but that central element and that character, which I'm assuming your target audience are going to recognize, is going to become clear. It's actually going to pop really nicely in that dark environment. And then rewording the text to just get across that emotion even more. He is back is pretty good, but it's not quite there. It's not quite, something about it isn't quite snapping enough. It's not, if I was trying to brainstorm this, I think, is there any way you can really concisely say something that is just super on theme for what you're trying to get across here? Something like the return, for an example. That's just off the top of my head, but that to me just creates this more haunted, scary environment that you're showing. So that would be the thing I would change. I would go remove red arrow, scale the image, clip the red circle, and then have something along the lines text-wise of the return, which fits the feel. And also just on that, for everyone here, when people say something it pops, it's not just the color itself. Bright colors are not the only way you get something to pop. And actually, in my opinion, what's more important is the contrast. That is what makes something pop. So, you could just use white and black and say, well, these aren't traditionally colors that pop. But if you can design it effectively, white and black can be some of the most contrasting situations you can create, which are going to pop the most. So don't get too hung up. While color can be very useful and it does draw the eye really nicely, it's not just as easy as thinking bright colors only. It's all about contrast. So just think about what elements you're using, what colors they are, and how you can actually make them pop through contrast. That's the only other thing that I would say on that. And the other question, what is the process of you coming up with video ideas to make a thumbnail? So I'm assuming that means coming up with video ideas which will make good thumbnails. And I mean, it's as obvious as that. It's just being aware of what you've just said. So when you are brainstorming ideas, at that stage, think about the thumbnail. So when you've come up with a good idea, not only assess whether it's a good video and whether you think it's going to be engaging and clickable, but also think, is this going to make a good thumbnail? Are there recognizable elements that are simple and easy to understand? Is there a very clear, remarkable aspect of this idea that I can focus the thumbnail around? So there's no secret to it. I think it's just being conscious of that. And I think that's something a lot more people are becoming aware of, is during that ideation process and thinking of ideas, actually considering thumbnails there and then, because they are arguably just as important as the video. So, yeah, that's what I'd say on that. Next question. We're not too far. If anyone's lost, we're not too far from the bottom. We are on Jasonuki. I think that's right. Title, turning $100 to $100,000 at age 16. Question, do you think I should change the text in the thumbnail so it stands out more? So specifically to your to your question, no, I think that text stands out very clearly. I don't know how you'd get that text any more clear. You could potentially remove the highlight. That black is going to contrast with the background nicely, so that would also work well. But I don't think that this, in its current format, is not visible. My question would be, is this the best text you can use? And actually thinking about it, I'm just, again, going through that question, what is remarkable about this idea? And having read your title, the first thing that stood out to me was the fact that you're only 16. But the fact that if you did earn 100,000 in 4 days, that is arguably just as remarkable, if not more remarkable. So you're not too far off with this one. I think the question you have to ask with this one is is the context clear? And is there enough intrigue in the thumbnail to get people to read the title, which is where you give more information. So as I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to people don't have to have a solid understanding of your idea through the thumbnail, but they need to know what it is that your video is about. And this one is very clearly about earning money. That stack of money is very recognizable. Arguably, you could potentially boost the greens just slightly, just to make sure they're notes. Because at a quick glance, are they going to get lost? Are people going to think that these are books or old notebooks? Seems granular, but this is how obvious you need to be with thumbnails. And then if there's those important elements are clear. I think in terms of this angle that you've gone down, this is probably the best version of it. I don't know if you did have any more versions, but I would just open up that consideration to be like, okay, is there any other ways we could represent this to get across the idea? But overall, yeah, not bad. I think the text is pretty good. Jazz Jody, we build 2 nether, I'm assuming that is Pether Nortals. I'm assuming that's nether portals. I know, I think I know Minecraft well enough to know that, but it might be something completely new that I've got no idea of. And question, my first thumbnail showed an image of the subject. Okay, it's got to be Pether Nortals. You can't be pronouncing it wrong that much. However, I think viewers were clicking, expecting a meme/funny video, or ignoring because they don't watch memes. Okay, so it's a meme-related stuff. So I've changed the thumbnail to the one below. And the question is, after 3 weeks of YouTube showing this video to the wrong audience, does the video have a chance to pick up new views? So I think that the first thing you mentioned there about expectations is really important. And I think it's something that a lot of creators overlook, is that the title and thumbnail isn't just there to get the click. The title and thumbnail also sets up the expectations which people judge the content on. So your job is not just done when you get the click with the title and thumbnail. Your job remains to see if that you set up expectations that so when people do actually get into the video, they are getting what they clicked for. Because if they're not, they're just going to click off. So I'm glad that you're aware of this, and you've said that potentially a previous version of what you did was creating the wrong expectations, which was causing some issues with expectations and audience. And more specifically to your question, changing the thumbnail after 3 weeks when YouTube has shown it to the wrong audience already, does it have a chance? It depends on size. Like if you're a big channel, your video will continue to get impressions, so it has every chance of picking up again, because it's all about impressions. If it can continue to show impressions, it's continuing to learn. The algorithm is continuing to learn. It's continuing to get data of are people clicking, are people watching, who's clicking, who should this go out to, all that sort of stuff. But if you're a smaller channel, it can be hard, because if after 3 weeks, for whatever reason, you missed the mark, your thumbnail wasn't getting the clicks, or it was doing so in the wrong way and causing some issues with retention, it can be hard to be picked up again, because as a smaller channel, your video just might stop getting more or enough impressions, should I say, to almost give it another go. So it can be hard, but the thing I'd recommend is you have to change it. So you've changed it, you've given it a go, and all you can do now is just sort of hope. If you've made the decision thinking that this thumbnail is the best one, then you've done the right thing. Your work is done. You have to sort of trust the algorithm, and if you are a smaller channel, just learn. Appreciate that maybe this one didn't. You know why you missed the mark, and make sure you get that right in future ones. And if you're a bigger channel, if this is the right switch, it has every right of picking up and getting more views. So yeah. Oh, I've been mentioned. Sorry, just checking. The Pether Nortals isn't clearly visible. Yeah, I think this one was more expectations. So, I mean, it's harder for me to say, because I'm not that familiar with the audience. So, as always, it comes down just to considering it from the audience perspective, and seeing what it is they want. So, next question. I've run over. I'm happy to run over. I'm going to be. We're nearly there. We've only got a few more. So, if any of you do have to bounce, obviously, I would love for you to stay, but don't feel compelled to stay. As I said, the recording will be shared. But let's go on. Chaos H. 2 link questions. How should I make good thumbnails for street interview / public reaction style videos? Do less polished style work better for them? Yes. There seems to be at this moment a very clear meta when it comes to street interview style thumbnails. And it is that very raw shot of either interviewer and interviewee, often the interviewer holding a microphone in front of a what is clearly a stranger in a street or outside environment, and then potentially some text, which is the question itself, or a very compelling clip from the answer. And it's, the other version of that as well is sometimes you don't even have to be in the thumbnail as the interviewer. You can just have a microphone sort of coming from one side and the stranger as the focus. So yeah, I think that's the very clear meta, and it's working very well. It's very effective, gets across the idea, feels authentic. The priority with that one is a lot of it comes down to the text. Obviously, you do have to make sure the shot is right, get a good shot, make sure it's clear what's going on. Be very conscious of the background, which is giving context of the situation, where you are, street interviews, etc. But really, it comes down to text selection. So just be very conscious of spending time to work out, okay, how are we going to create a compelling situation here? Is it the question itself? If so, is there a way we can frame the question in 3 words, that sort of thing? Or is it maybe a response that's going to be more compelling? And then how do we do that in the same sort of context? So yeah, I don't know the channel that you mentioned, but that is definitely the style. If I was to apply the 3-element rule in these types of videos, would it be something like my face, interview's face, and text bubble saying something catchy, attention grabbing? Yeah, that's exactly it. And as I said, you don't even need to have your face. You could have your face if it's like a branding decision, but you could potentially even see a version where your face gets replaced with the microphone. But yeah, I think your face is fine. I would definitely recommend holding a mic to make sure that the sort of dynamics of the interview are clear, and the fact that it is an interview is clear. And yeah, text is the other one. You don't even have to do it in a speech bubble as well. You can just do it in quotation marks. That tends to work really well. Yuri, the harsh truth about Minecraft. Question: since my latest video's performance have been quite terrible, I'd like to ask, is my title the main cause of this, the thumbnail, or both? And if so, any questions? The harsh truth about Minecraft... sorry. I don't know if I said that the first time I read that. The harsh truth about Microsoft. I think it's a good title. It's really nice in the way it creates a curiosity gap. I think sometimes, Yuri, I think you're a smaller creator. I can't remember. I think I've been on your channel a few times. I think sometimes you have, with these broad titles and thumbnails, it can almost be harder as a smaller channel to get clicks because it's so broad that you're almost fighting in a massive pool. Like there's so many other people making this sort of stuff. So there is argument that you can, by creating more of a niche title and thumbnail, and I don't necessarily mean changing the idea, but the framing of the idea, is there potentially something that you could do to make this just more unique, so that when potential viewers see it, they see it as something new, something different that they haven't seen before. Because that can be sometimes the best way to stand out, is just to be different. So try and find interesting angles that haven't been covered before, and see if that's where you can almost compete. Be a bigger fish in a small... be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, rather than a small fish in a big pond. Because there's so many people trying to make this type of content, which can make it more difficult for you to stand out. But as I said, I do like the title. That being said, and thumbnail wise, yeah, recognizable elements. Bill Gates himself. You've given this sort of weird context of him in this situation where he's like the devil, I'm guessing. Fire going on in the background. Microsoft for more context on the right. I like the thumbnail. Simple, gets across the idea very well. I would just echo the same thing that I've said in the title. Is it just too broad that you your idea isn't concise enough to get someone in who has the luxury of having hundreds of other channels making this content. So that's all I would say on that. Okay, we're getting some more questions in. Wow. I'm just checking chat. Okay, good. Cheese Cat, thank you for coming. No worries. I'm glad I could help. Okay, next one. Lifted Wrangler. Trading a toy car to a real car in 100 days. Wondering if this thumbnail is too simple, if the blurry face is not good. It was tough because of the focus on the toy car. So I like the shot. I don't necessarily think that you want the focus of this thumbnail to be on you. You actually want the focus to be on the car, theoretically, and the camera does a good job of this. So I think it's a good base image. I think that just by having such a simplistic image, you need to be very conscious of making sure the context is there through additional elements, in this particular case, which is through the text. And I have 100 days, to me, seems out of context, slightly confusing. Sort of like you're going to get people asking the wrong questions, sort of questions which aren't the good questions. You're not making people curious. You're just making people say, like, what? Have 100 days to what? So that I say this quite a lot. There's a fine line between curiosity and confusion. And I think this one is slightly leaning to the confusing side, but I think very fixable. And all it is just working out text which paints context of the idea. And again, we asked that question, what is remarkable about your idea? Well, it's the fact that you're trying to trade this thing for a real car. So how do we make sure that we capture that in the thumbnail? Well, if we're going with this base image, how do you capture a real car in this? Could you potentially have like a price tag coming off that little car with the price of what the real car is? So if the real car's $50,000, might have offended you there. That car might be much more. I'm not sure. But if it is $50,000, could you have a price tag coming off that car saying $50,000, which would then create the curiosity of being like, oh, why is that car worth $50,000? Well, it's not, but your title clears it up. Is the fact that you're trying to trade this car to get to the sort of the real car, the $50,000 car. So that could be an angle. If you wanted to go down this single image and then just brainstorming some other things off the top of my head, I would just do some research. I would look at some other thumbnails. I know the obviously Ryan Trahan's Penny series is sort of the king of this type of content, should we say, or this style of series / video. But I would have a look around. Potentially there's some other variations you could look at. Is a split screen going to be one variation you could look at, where left side you have you holding the toy car, or a shot of what is very clearly a toy car, and then at the right you have a shot of what very clearly is a real car. Then you do like day 1, day 98, something like that. There's potentially other versions that I could get across, but yeah, I think this isn't too far away as a base image. Just need to tighten up that context slightly. Next question, Ron. What was going on there? The reactions are nuts. Hey guys, I have a question. I have a pretty new channel, 2 months, and while I think I'm doing a good job with title and thumbnail combinations, the CTR is low, 2 to 4%. I keep optimizing title and thumbnail, but could it also just be that YouTube is pushing my videos to the wrong audience? I think you are particularly looking. It's hard for me to give you a CTR percentage. I cover this quite a lot. I've seen videos that do have what is on paper a low CTR do very well. So it's hard to give you sort of a CTR number where you have to get 10% to succeed. And the thing I always tend to recommend is looking at views. And if your views are low, then yes, there potentially is an issue. And sort of general recommendations is just, as an early channel, just put in the reps, keep making videos, and just learn every time. I think that is the secret or not the secret, or the best strategy for a smaller channel is I think a lot of smaller channels get so focused on just making the perfect video and having this viral video and exploding super quickly. But actually it's just about, in my opinion, quantity. Just getting as many videos as you can. Obviously the videos still need to be, good. Don't just upload rubbish. You're not going to get anywhere. But don't spend weeks and weeks trying to make this perfect video and then sort of spend another weeks and weeks assessing it and going in. Just go again. Upload as quickly as you can. Get the data there. Assess what's going on. Say, okay, look, the CTR didn't work, or potentially the CTR didn't work because the views aren't high. Let's try another style. Let's try another style. And eventually you'll start to understand, okay, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. And you're just basically getting, I always capture it as like a funnel. And every upload, you're just getting closer and closer and closer to this point where you've got a really good understanding of what works and what gets the clicks. So we sort of touched on wider strategy with that question, but I hope that helped. And the thing I would echo is that views are probably more important at your stage than CTR. And then once you've got a ton of videos, you can actually start getting a better understanding of what CTR works for the channel. Suspect, do you think people tend to overemphasize on where certain text is positioned or how much brightness there is in certain parts of the thumbnail? Or wanting to forcefully put light dominant colors to hack the algorithm, but really people tend to look at it as in parts and make sense of it rather than dealing with the thumbnail in whole. And look, okay, this is a long one. Look at thumbnails as a tool for communicating the underlying idea. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that in general, a lot of people do tend to overcomplicate thumbnails. And I think that the thing I've learned by doing this for a reasonably long time is that I've learned this more and more, is that the idea is such a big part of the thumbnail. And I think sometimes if you find yourself over-optimizing the thumbnail, you could just be over-optimizing it from a strategy perspective, but potentially you could also be trying to make up for a bad idea. So I think the thing I would echo is or emphasize is really spend the time thinking of good ideas. And the better the ideas you think of, the easier the thumbnail is going to be to make. And there are obviously tiny little things that myself and other people share about, deep theory and design and color optimizations and all that sort of stuff. But that's like the cherry on the top of the cake. The big work comes from the idea itself and the way you frame that idea in general. These little things, these little optimizations might help, but there's a lot more work in sort of the bigger issues, should we say, or the bigger parts of what makes a good title and thumbnail and a good video. So focus on those as much as you can. Hope that helps. Next question. SS Tech. What do you think of short thumbnails? Should we focus on them or leave them? Leave them. There's some potential avenues where they're important. I think at one time, the homepage was testing sharing shorts within the long form shelf, should we say, with the thumbnail. But I think, look, the vast majority of short views are going to come from the shorts shelf, the short mechanic, and you don't need a thumbnail there. So I would not lose sleep of them. Thanks for the kind messages through reactions as well. Okay, someone's getting mad on the emojis. Next question, Soldy. I upgraded the end in Minecraft Hardcore. I'm keen on learning what I can improve. This got 500k views. I mean, well played. I would honestly, if it got 500,000 views, I would say you've got it spot on. I always say this: views are going to be a better indicator of a thumbnail than I'll ever be. So, and this one's saying that it's spot on. So yeah, I think you've crushed it. Top work. I don't know what size of the channel if that's normal for your channel or that's maybe not, but it seems to me like it's very good. If I was to critique anything, like potentially you could even remove those dotted lines on the left where the planets and stuff are going to be, just to even more emphasize the the remarkable element of this, which is the fact that you transform something from X to Y. I don't necessarily think you need those things on the left there. I think what you were trying to get across is clear. I see why you're doing it, because it could get slightly confusing and people maybe not sure what you're trying to get across. But I think that it's worth looking at a version where they're not there. But yeah, if it's got 500,000 views, spot on. Well done. I'm just going to check chat. I'm British. It's true. The truth is out. What's up? Sorry, Salty, just follow up. East Midlands. Same at the moment. I'm in I'm normally in London, but I'm in East Midlands at the moment. Salty, follow up. Is the CTR something that is good or bad for 5 million impressions? As I said before, it's very hard to give you a CTR, a specific CTR, and whether it's good or bad. And one of the great examples of that is because as a video goes viral, should we say, or where impressions significantly increase, the CTR tends to drop. But that's just the nature of the fact that it has gone out to so many people. So that's why it's hard, because if I gave you a CTR percentage and it drops below that because impressions are going up, some people would start thinking, oh, the thumbnail sucks, the thumbnail's not working, change it. But if the views are going up, it's working. So I'm not going to. I wouldn't give you an answer on that. I think the views are the main thing. Okay, well, let's see how many we got. Okay, nice. Crikety. Title so far: Refreshment for the anime community. I'll try to structure my questions as much as possible. Sorry if it's a bit disordered. This is a thumbnail concept that I have. I'm intentionally making it minimal. I'd mainly apply to my anime niche, but I'd like to know what you think of it conceptually. To make thumbnail, I base my thumbnail on an image that is very associated with a new anime. The video is about the influence you've had on the anime community and why I think cyberpunk follows in the footsteps. So I like the style of it. I just don't know if the style is like that relevant. Like if I look at that, I'm sort of expecting it to be like a art-based video where you actually sketch that, or you actually design, animate, draw the character. So when I would read the title, I'd be slightly confused. Slash, would I might not read the title because the context is off. So I like your focus on creating like a unique style. And sort of the passion and getting across the sort of wider idea. But I think that it's important to remember what the title and thumbnail is there. Their main job is get the click. As I said, it's also there for expectations. But remember, from the target viewer's perspective, they haven't watched the video yet. It's not. They have no idea what the video is about. So you need to be very conscious of that and build a thumbnail which best advertises your video. And I just don't think at the moment the thumbnail does that, because you've almost gone too simple. So just echoing the questions I've asked before, really spend the time to work out what is remarkable about the idea, what is really interesting about your idea, what is that target audience going to be clicking on, and then try and think of visual ways you can capture that in the thumbnail. I don't think this is going to be necessarily a bad base for the thumbnail. This could really work as a base, but I would think that you're probably going to need something on top of it just to give wider context of what the video is about. So yeah, hope that helps. Leon Green, what do you think of the thumbnail? I mostly post dropshipping content, but I want to branch out into finance in general. So I didn't put anything dropshipping related in the description to see if you can reach a wider audience. Is that a good tactic to branch out? Yeah, 100%. I don't think it's the description is going to be the main driver of it. I think that there are potentially some important aspects of the description which help basically YouTube define the content and therefore the audience it goes out to. But I think the biggest thing is going to be the video itself, the title and thumbnail and the actual video. And if it is a niche switch, I think in your case there is going to be some crossover, but there also is going to be some audience lost. So if this is sort of a channel strategy decision, the thing I always recommend is that it just takes time. just takes a bit of time for the audience to adapt, the algorithm to adapt, the audience to adapt. And I wouldn't get too worried about trying to figure out the balance between getting the hybrid right. I would just make the best content for an audience that you think will be interested in it, and packaging it in the best way. And that is the best strategy when you're going for a niche switch, because eventually, the algorithm is very sophisticated. You have to trust the algorithm. And if you are making great content that people are getting value from, YouTube will push it to more people. So keep going. And then just from a quick packaging perspective, I think this looks pretty good. It's simplistic. I mean, I can see how you've tried to capture the drop shipping angle in there with the screen. And I think that I think overall the packaging isn't that far away. I think there's always the question of whether you should blur elements of the thumbnail or not, and more often than not, I think it's actually better not to blur, because I think people always tend to say the argument of like, oh, well, blurring it creates curiosity and people want to know what the item is. But more often than not, people aren't actually interested in the specific item, but more the context around the specific item. So you actually showing the product isn't going to annoy people, because they don't probably particularly care about the product. They actually care about the context around it. Why is it a good product that no one wants to sell? I think your idea is sort of, because I understand what you're doing with this product makes millions, but no one wants to sell it. I still think that potentially on blurring it could be the best angle, but there is a world where that is also the best way to go. But yeah, more often than not, I actually think not blurring items is better. BIPN, I stole my opponent's player every game I won. Yeah, interesting. I like what you've done there with the visual representation of it. Sort of like merging IRL and game, which I've seen do quite well in this niche. FootCrunch is doing it. A few other guys are doing it. With this one, it all comes down to whether you think your target audience will understand what it is that's going on, which I think they will, because you've got the right idea with the fact that you've got your finger up there, like shushing to show you like sneaking around. It's all about whether you think the target audience will understand it, because that is the hardest thing. I think the idea is a good one. Not that familiar with the niche in terms of I'm not in the target audience, but I think that this one is. It's an interesting one. It's hard for me to give a assessment of this. I almost think that the best way to do this is actually just to test it, get it out there and see. Potentially, if you've got a group where there's more FIFA-based audience, you could ask them, see if the idea is getting across. But yeah, I think this one is not too bad. Next one. Question mark. AI generated my Instagram photos and no one noticed. What could I do to change this to make it more intriguing? So I think with this one, there's a big part of this that's sort of missing in the thumbnail with the Instagram-based aspect of it. So there could be a world where you try and show that more clearly. I see with the comment, you are trying to get that across, but I think there's potentially a version where that could be more clear, because I think that's the interesting part of this. So yeah, I think that, is there any way you can sort of grab a screen grab of the Instagram feed and basically just integrating the image into that, because I think everything else in this is good. Like the image is pretty cool. You've got the fake, the text. So yeah, I think this is good. There's potentially just other ways you could get across that remarkable aspect of it being Instagram, which I think is a good way in for a lot of your target audience. Evolve, no question, but thanks for the thumbnail title combo you gave me. It's going crazy with views right now. Glad I could help. MZ1, should these thumbnail titles change? Sorry, just for an update of where we are, if you're following along. We're pretty close to the bottom now. MZ1, I think he's about 4 or 5 up. Should these thumbnail titles change if they have stopped gaining traction? E.g. the Tom Holland vid popular for when Spider-Man No Way Home was being released, but it's not sought now. I think it comes down to whether you think the video itself is evergreen, which is quite a common way people look at it, and asking yourself, like, is this video actually still watchable and valuable at this moment in time? Some videos are just, very watchable, very clickable in the moment, but as the trend or the topic loses interest, so does the video. So I think it's about working out that's the first thing to work out. And if you think then that some of these videos are evergreen and still valuable at this moment in time, assess the thumbnail as you normally would assess it. Look at the views. If views are flatlined, is there a way you can create a new angle, title and thumbnail wise, to start getting more clicks, and assess the same way you would if you were making a new thumbnail. But I think more often than not, don't lose too much sleep over this sort of stuff. I think it's better to just keep focusing on future ones. There is potentially some testing you can do on old videos, but more often than not, it's better just to actually keep moving forward, keep uploading, and try new things. Next question. Sub G? Sorry, I've been awful at pronouncing names. My bad. But I think I know. You know if I'm talking to you. Title: I tried Minecraft's hardest challenges. Question: this video has an AVD of 324, which is the most out of any of my videos, but it flopped. I'm guessing it's the thumbnail. Why do you think it didn't perform well? Well, I just think in all honesty, from a thumbnail perspective, it just doesn't seem that interesting to me. And again, caveating this with this, I'm not necessarily in your target audience, but I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, there's nothing that remarkable about that character. That might be that I just don't know and I'm missing something. But best player, it just doesn't seem that interesting to me. It's not that. Why would I click on this Minecraft video over the hundreds of others that are out there? So all I would say is just spending the time to work out, what is remarkable about your idea. Why is this different from any other video? Why is this video worth a viewer's time? And then getting creative with how you show that. So my guess is if you did Minecraft's hardest challenges, there are more remarkable situations that you could use in the thumbnail, whether that's a crazy build or in some way something you're doing, challenges within a crazy build, like that could potentially be something that's more extreme, more clickable. So that would be it. I just think it's the title's good in my opinion. I think it's what you've tried to capture in the thumbnail, which just isn't quite hitting the mark. Burb question: there's countless videos explaining how to become a YouTuber, but not for a relatively new position in the creator economy like a thumbnail editor. So if someone wants to be a thumbnail editor, how do you think they should go about it, especially to get the first few gigs, as that's the hardest? Twitter is your friend. Thumbnail Twitter has had a pretty crazy year. And I just think it's a great place to share your work. So if you're on Twitter, just start sharing your work. If you're not, create an account, don't spend too long worrying about the branding, but just get an account set up and just share your work. And one thing I would recommend if I was starting out I would be remaking thumbnails as much as possible. Obviously in the niche you're in. and I would set myself a challenge where I'm like, I'm going to try and remake a thumbnail every day for a month and post it on Twitter. And if you do that, and the thumbnails are good, trust me, you will get attention, because there is a shortage of designers. And so if you are actually sharing good work, you will be picked up. And in terms of getting your first gigs, you're potentially going to have to take a bit of a hit. You're going to have to undercharge, maybe even offer to do some for free. There's always that some people are like, oh, never work for free. But at the start, you just need to get good and get clients. So yeah, just do whatever you need to do to show that. M1Z1. Okay, what are we on? Last three. Wow. MZ1, sorry. Every time I upload a new video on my actual channel, it gets 2-3 views after a period of around 4 or 5 days. It's clear my 110 subscribers are inactive to an extent. Do I keep uploading and just start a new channel? I made a new channel experiment and got only 5 impressions on a video on the new channels when I saw above. Just keep going. It's a rep game at that stage, given you're a new creator. So just really keep keep uploading, keep going. It's hard when you have such low impressions to sort of even understand if it is working and what is not. But I think just, spend the time thinking of ideas, which I think is where I got cut off, that will appeal to an audience. You know, social hacking is a good technique, which I think you know because that KSI video is yours. So, just keep going. It's a horribly frustrating time. I think getting your first subscriber, I know you've got a couple, but 0 to 1 is the hardest. It's the hardest subscriber you have to get, and it gets easier after that. So just keep going. Okay, so I've got loads of ones. Okay, last couple. Where are we? Local. I tried Minecraft's craziest commands. Is this background too bright? Also, is there any other way I can move this thumbnail? No, I don't think the background's too bright. Again, it's all about contrast and where you're, what you want to see is clear, which I think in this case is. It's the red TNT and your character. I potentially think. No, I like it now. I get it. Yeah, I get that now with the command. I thought that TNT was separate to the bow, but that is what you're trying to show. So I like that. I like it. What is remarkable about this idea? It's the fact that you are firing out TNT, and the mod you used gives context. So I think that's spot on. Cublum, do you think doing thumbnails for shorts is worth the time? Nope. Salty, I built the Mona Lisa in Minecraft Hardcore. To me, this isn't great. How would you frame it? So if you do get pretty substantial views, I would always ask, where is this one? If you don't like it, doesn't necessarily mean that the audience doesn't like it. If this is getting good views, it's getting good views. But if it isn't, if I was doing this, I would show the Mona Lisa that you actually built. This, you clearly have used the picture, which to me just feels slightly inauthentic. And if your idea is as remarkable and this build of Mona Lisa was, and if that is the build, then that's obviously insane. I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't know if it is or not. But if it is, then you need to make sure that it's more clearly actually Minecraft itself, or actually the build, because that is what's going to get the click. Even if it's not perfect, I still think if it's pretty remarkable and you show that in the thumbnail, someone's going to, a lot of people are going to find that pretty interesting and want to click, even though it might not be 100% perfect because of the difficulty of the challenge. So that would be my strategy. And then also, if a video is a 3-month-old and it's peaked, just changing the thumbnail slightly, promote it, or get back to the recommended algorithm. No, the thumbnail switches don't re-engage the algorithm. They only do so if the impressions that it is getting become more effective. So by switching it, get a better CTR, the algorithm's obviously going to be more likely to push it. Leon Green, I have 42k subs, which I gained 30 of those in the past 3 months. And while my CTR on a video with about 10k views at 8% plus, with about 60% retention, how come competitors in the drop singing can pull 50k views easily? I noticed their videos are 8 minutes long. Does this mean I should make my videos around their length? With obviously good retention. So in terms of video length, my recommendation is always just to make it as long as it needs to be. Don't force retention just to get a longer video. Whatever your video needs to be, that is how long it should be. And in terms of just getting views and comparing views, it's just a numbers game. If they are getting more views than you, it's because their analytics will be better. So just keep concentrating on making the best content. Getting that retention even higher, getting the CTR even up higher, thinking better video ideas that's more interesting than all that sort of stuff. Dale, I don't have a thumbnail to roast, but curious if you documented a task list, SOP, etc. for your thumbnail brainstorming and creative process. I do, coming soon. Look at that, product teas coming in. And MZ1, I think this is the last one. The Mr. Beast thumbnail is just a thumbnail I made when I was bored. How is it? I think it isn't great as it looks heavily influenced by Sunny V2 and isn't unique. The Jake Paul video is a parody, mocking his entire career. This I made in 2021. What's your honest opinion? I think that they are pretty good. Again, it's hard if you've just created mock-ups for these. I think you just need to give slightly more thought on the actual video you're going to make and asking yourself, okay, well, what is this video going to be about? You know, that there's a lot of Mr. Beast videos out there, particularly the ones talking about his rise and his growth. So again, it's asking yourself, is that enough there to get the click? And if it's not, what specifically can you do or add to the thumbnail title or wider idea to make it more clickable, more remarkable? Again, same with, Jake Paul. These are two good topics, but by making them good, and when I say good, I mean interesting and widely appealing, it also means they are very competitive. So there are a lot of videos, I imagine, out there along very similar lines of why people hate Jake Paul. So it just comes down to working out why your one is worth someone's time more than anyone else's, and making sure that you capture that in the packaging. Is it too late to make content like the rise of, the downfall of? No, definitely not. If you do it better than anyone, they will click. How can you figure out the video length of your next video should be? However long it takes, what it is you're trying to make, and however long it needs to be to do that. Wow, that was good. Okay, I'm going to pop to the chat. That was awesome. Wow, what are we? That's an hour and 40 minutes. Wow. Thank you all for coming. 14 of you hung around for the full hour 40. I appreciate you. I hope this is a good format. I like this format. It gives everyone an opportunity to submit questions, and obviously with time difference, it means that everyone can submit stuff, and it also still has this live element to it, which I really like. I love speaking to you all in real time. Something I definitely want to do more of, and get better at. It's obviously much easier to type than it is to be on mic for a while, but I hope my British accent wasn't too boring. It's nearly 9 p.m. as well, so there you go. But I appreciate you all for being here. In terms of the recording, I'll probably do like a little edit on it just to tighten it up, run through it just to make sure it's all there. But within tomorrow or the next day latest. Accent. Yeah, thank you. I got that British accent, so it can be useful. But honestly, guys, appreciate you all for being here. I really do. Thank you all for being a part of the community. Thanks for supporting me. If you do on Twitter, I'm about to release a tweet right now after this one, and the tweets will keep coming. So I honestly, love all of you. So thanks for being here. I'm going to try and do these monthly, I think. So keep an eye out for the next one, and I'll be about on the Discord as well. So do this daily. I'm leaving on that. I can't. But peace, guys. Thank you very much. Speak soon.